Quantum Bombs.
All right, welcome to Quantum Bombs, where we talk about metaphysics, freedom, and the human condition. Three big old random words that makes a sandwich. What do they have to do with each other? Metaphysics to me, guys, is two of the big questions, the fundamental questions. Where did you come from and where are you going? It's easier to wrap your head around it saying it that way rather than saying, what is reality? Because when I ask you that, it's way too vague. But if you just focus on that, where did you come from and where are you going? Freedom is just my libertarian way of saying, let's talk about culture, geopolitics, and the news. But also freedom is the fundamental state that you are as a soul, and that I would argue that you need here. You know, you have your two main emotions of fear and love, but you really don't get to flourish in that love unless you have freedom. And then the third is the human condition. It's really looking at the first two, evaluating it, but understanding that the human condition isn't your natural state of being. We're actually here in a condition that it's not home to us. And that really the human condition it's not boring, but it's actually quite predictable. I mean, if you look at psychology, sociology, anthropology throughout time, humans are pretty predictable. And if you extended that out, you can kind of get an idea for what our creator is. God most likely has a really good sense of humor because humans, we all act and think the same. You know, we all have the same types. There's only so many ways that humor works. There's only so many ways things are done. And if you look through history and going back to politics and all of these questions, the human condition is going to apply to that. It helps us understand why we virtue signal, why are we so dang tribal, and just a fun look at, or a different look, a much needed, nuanced, healthier look at our very fun, crazy world that we're in. And today's topic is quite easy for me how I fell on it. But I was actually doing that. Let me try telling AI, like you hear people use AI as therapists. And I was like, let me just dump on it what I've done for the last 15 years of my career and down to what I'm working on in this very instant, in one of those verbal talks, you know, where you could talk to the AI and tell it everything it needs to know in like 2 minutes. I did a dump and it was like, oh, you just suffer from analysis paralysis and you should just pick your biggest topic and just talk about it unscripted. So that's what I'm doing. Thankfully for me, I do know my life's purpose and goal, at least right now where I believe it's at. And it has been. I had already written it on my website like 2-3 years prior, which is my purpose in life is to help people not be scared of death and dying and to have a better understanding that, you know, death isn't the end, and that also as humans that to not feel so alone, and just to talk about that with you guys. So the first thing I wanted to talk about on death and dying is really what makes it unique, what makes it, I don't know, just what the heck is it and why it's important. And the first cool thing I like to think about with death is that it's literally the only one thing we have in common with each other. And I think a good way for my mind to like wrap around that is if you think about some of the most powerful people in the world, if you're in a room with them in an oh-poop situation, they're quickly humanized. It's a very easy bridge for me, at least when I meet people. Like I once made a little short reel on everybody poops and just basically like don't sweat it when you're with any type of situation, interview, etc. on a date or with very high powered people, because at the end of the day, they still have those same human instincts that they're fearing death at the end of the day without even knowing it. And they're trying to get through life. But the minute someone is having like a health issue or an oh-poop situation, we are all kind of fundamentally the same. The other thing with death is that one of the things that differentiates us from animals is that we're aware of it. All other animals and things on the planet, they have a drive and an instinct to survive and to live on, but they don't really have the awareness of this impending change that is ahead for all of us, the same way humans do. So at what age did you realize you're going to die? I think this is why I know it's why I'm doing it. I was like everybody, young, and I started attending like probably my first funeral. And I remember being like severely depressed. Probably wasn't anybody even tremendously close to me, but just that idea of like the finality of it, it really I mean, I remember it really stuck with me, and it was a depression that I didn't know how to address, or, because I was thinking about it. And I'm also probably programmed to think about it more than other people. When I mean program, meaning like it's in my personality, it's in my makeup type. It is something that I do think about. Like these existential questions is who I am. One other property of death that I really love now that I'm into metaphysics and physics is the surreal aspect that it's also our first like paradoxical conundrum in your brain about the infinity or the finality of it. It's your first time that, like, a lot of people, you can derp through life, but with death, it's like the one thing you can't derp around. And you could really, it's infinite. It's one of those things that like your brain starts playing with, and it can't really pinpoint. It's a bit slippery. Okay, so one of the thing, your takeaway from this, my blabbering today, I wanted to go over was really just the body problem and regarding death. And so they say that psychologists say almost every other fear is tied to the fear of death. So basically, you may have heard that before. Most of our fears are all surrounding death. And another similar thing on that same nuance is all forms of addiction are an attempt to avoid the reality that we are going to die. I think that one's pretty interesting if you just play that out, like whether you're addicted to vaping, whether you're addicted to pornography, drinking, or even eating sugar, maybe even working out. It's all it's all escapism, I guess. And you're trying to escape what, right? Escape that, I think this is why most people would rather shock themselves than sit alone with themselves in a room and let their thoughts slow down into nothing. Because once you let your thoughts slow down, you're able to kind of address this realism of, I am and what are we doing here? So the body problem, how do we solve this fear, this thing that we can't escape? And it's really just to take away the fear of death. It begins with body identification. The problem is, as humans, we naturally identify with the body. We come to earth and we're given these five senses, and it's very natural. Everything is coming through these five senses in the body apparatus to say, I am this physical entity. I mean, if you didn't think so, you would be the one that's considered crazy. So, my notes say we forget that we're two separate things. Well, in a way we do. In the belief system that we came here from somewhere else, yes, you forgot that you are two separate things. But for most of us, we don't even know that we're two separate things. So I'm going to help you. If you're one thing that you could take away from my blabbering today is, what are the two separate things? So obviously your body is one of them. And the other one, I'm going to give you a 3-sided coin. And I'm doing that so you could remember it. And so you can maybe start grappling with more of the understanding of it. Because if I just told you, you are your consciousness and you are your body, it already sounds woo, and you're going to glaze over and you're like, whatever. And the main problem with that is because consciousness, when you look at it from a fundamental standpoint from scientists or physics, they still don't know what it is, just like we don't know what matter is. But if you boil them both down, they both turn into energy. But that's a topic for another day. Okay, so the 3-sided coin. Yes, you've got this confusing word. It's like your consciousness that goes on forever. A great way to remember what it is 3 things. It is your awareness, the I am. I'm existing, the awareness, existing. So the second one is existence. It is existence. The I am existing. So you've got awareness, existence, and your soul. And everybody's heard that buzzword before, but this really kind of helps you even understand the soul better. So your soul and your existence and your awareness are 3 things that can never be cut up, divided. They are literally the same thing, and they are eternal. They go on infinitely. They cannot physically, metaphysically, spiritually, nothing. They can never be destroyed nor split or chopped off into 2 twin flames. That's just like a sexy metaphysical thing that girls want to talk about when they're really in love with a dude or something. Okay, this is one point of individuated consciousness that came out from the larger consciousness system. You are made in God's image. That is what that means. It's just more of a metaphysical way to say it, which is you've got this fundamental field, which is a larger consciousness body that existed spirit existed before created space-time, before anything was manifest. It was just that. And then manifested out is this matrix, a field of thought with different points of being. And you are one of those souls. And that soul is also your awareness and your existence. It's all the same thing. So it's separate from the body. The body apparatus, the brain itself, is only like a receiver. It's like shooting a signal to a radio. The radio is like our brain, but the radio isn't the consciousness. The radio is just the receiver that spits it out. But the signal exists always. It's just coming from somewhere. So yeah, if you could see those two things separately, and this is why, if we want to get scientific, which it doesn't make any difference to me if I sell you on the idea of meditation or not, but it's just something to look at, which is most people don't realize that meditation, from its scientific stance, thousands of years from horrible with names, oh my gosh, I'm just going to spell it on the screen, This is one of my quirks. I stumble with certain words. Sorry, everybody. Pantology. The Eightfold Path of Yoga. Most people don't realize that yoga is really a study of how to stop the breath and stop the heart from pumping. When you sit in meditation long enough, you'll realize, oh, wow, when's the last time I sent my body a breath? Did I breathe in the last 20 minutes? And you'll all of a sudden realize your consciousness and viewpoint from how you see things, of course your eyes are closed, but is actually not even in the body. You might be far away from it, up above it, flying away from it, and you begin to realize, I exist outside of the body. I'm completely fine. In fact, usually when you start to have these thoughts of worry, like when's the last time I breathed? Is my body stiff down there? That kind of brings your awareness more back into the body. So the biggest joke on humankind while we're here is that we are the body, but we're really not. We are a part of a fundamental field that is reaching out through all of the ether, both outside of space-time, which is heaven or the astral world, and inside of space-time, which is here on Earth. Your consciousness is just being projected through this physical body that we made a pact that we'll be a part of for, less than 100 years. And on this go about, and that's that. You are never going to, your little idea of me and I am, and this little nest, God gave you your own finesse that makes you different from everybody else. Your nest, like my Beth nest, your nest is never going to fail or cease to go away, even as you graduate into heaven and into closer and closer to God and merging back with one, your nest will actually never leave. So if anything, if you could understand that your consciousness transcends space-time, it transcends beyond everything that we know as physical. And the apparatus it does that through is the fundamental field, the matrix, the ether, the all that is, the larger consciousness system that goes from space-time to Hilbert space. Hilbert space is just kind of a fancy physics word for outside of what we don't know, outside of the edges of the expanding space-time. But you're only stuck in this body cage while you're here in space-time. The second you step out of space-time, you're back into the field and you're actually able to access all that is all at once and everything, meaning you're part of a field that your right hand can talk to your left hand on other sides of outside of space-time, meaning you could be light years away and still kind of know what's going on. This is why they say in heaven, you could speak to each other instantly without having to use words. And how old school is that? Because when you're home in heaven or in the astral world, whatever you'd like to call it, you do have the ability to talk to one another instantaneously, probably, through this fundamental field of air, ether that we don't talk about. It's funny, we talk about it in ancient esoteric theology and religion, and we kind of talk about it in physics, but we give it words like, well, it's actually funny, depending upon, I have my buckets of physicists. 80 to 90% of the physicists talk about it as if it's as a materialist, whether it's dark energy or dark matter, and, the 0-point energy field, the vacuum, they've got different levels of degrees of how they describe it. And then you've got your physicists that I listen to quite a bit, and they're idealist, and they can actually explain to you those same states. The thing is that everybody's talking about the same thing, and no one really wants to get on this to acknowledge that. Like, it's not that hard of spectrum. It's not that, I don't see it as that. It's a big claim for me to put out there, but I basically feel like the theory of everything's out there and it's staring us in the face. And I look forward to going over with you some people that really have got it together and really have got their understanding of it well published, well put together, and kind of easy to understand. And it's so easy. I've actually put it into Sleep Stories. I didn't mean to plug my sleep channel on my first episode, but I'm already going to. If you want to hear one of the cool stories that talk about it, I've got a series dedicated to physics the show is called Adventures in Dreamland. And I have a sleep study playlist that I talk a lot about physics. It's my voice. I put you to sleep telling you all about the theory of everything. Wow, well, there was my first commercial on my preliminary show to kind of paint a picture of exactly how wide the topic of death and dying really is, even though we kind of act like we all, oh yeah, we have this understanding of someone, going forever and rest in peace, and which drives me crazy. Don't get me started on the rest in peace thing. Don't get me started. That's like the silliest thing to say. I catch myself wanting to write it to others too online because I just what I'm trying to say is condolences and respect. Honor is given, but I definitely disagree with like the rest in peace. And I'm like, where did that even come from? And there actually is theology and beliefs behind why we say rest in peace. But for me, my own personal perspective and opinion is it couldn't be any further from the truth for that soul. They're not resting. They're partying. I mean, they're going back to the one. They're going into heaven. Life's just beginning. They're going, wow, what a ride. Let me have my own judgment day now. But to put this into perspective of how different we are on regards to just how different and vast we see death and dying, is the longevity and wellness influencer world, the space for biohacking. You may have heard or follow Brian Johnson. I myself have watched his videos. I enjoy it. I'm into my own health and biohacking. Oh yes, and I'm definitely into staying young and beautiful. But his core ideology, I guess after watching it, is kind of the exact opposite of what I'm preaching, like the complete opposite. So he has a very catchy campaign. It's Don't Die. He has don't die parties. And he's basically trying to defy entropy, which is kind of ironic and funny because for those of us that are believers, for those of us that know God and think about God and talk to God every day and blah, 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 I'm not trying to paint myself as some angel here, but for those that are in this spiritual community, it's something that we are actually looking forward to and trying to commune with in the real and now. And then you have the opposite spectrum of that, where there's people that, are more science-based and more material-based, and they're just like, we're going to work with this physical stuff and we're going to make it last forever because death is so scary. We're going to defy entropy. But the point I'm trying to make, and what I want to capitalize in all caps, is that death is not entropy. And I know what you're thinking, you're like, well, maybe she doesn't know the definition of entropy. Well, there are a few, and they go into thermodynamics and things like that. But for me, in my brain, entropy is chaos. And death is actually realigning with unification. It's realigning with the one. There's even a saying that, like, when you're in alignment, when you're in a state of flow, it's a handshake with mortality. For example, when you're in a flow state, what is that, guys? What puts you in a flow state? Good game of pickleball? Like, for example, like alignment, when you're in the vortex, as Abraham Hicks would say, oh man, I love me a good spreadsheet. It's when I'm filling out my Excel spreadsheet and it looks so good and I have like all the calculations and everything's perfect. I can pivot tables and all kinds of stuff. Flow states is when you're playing tennis, when you're singing, when you're playing the guitar. People even argue it's when you're having sex. It's these things. Shooting a three-pointer, like the flick of the wrist, the sound of the net, things that you don't have to think about, things that come natural to you, things that your body is happy to performing and doing. It's actually when you're in a state of neutrality, that's your handshake with mortality because you're producing and you're leaving something behind. It's almost as if you know that you're just here to be, really. And when you're being, you're in alignment and you're doing and leaving things. And so being in alignment, being in a flow state, it is a spiritual state. It is a very interesting state that I think we could talk about and philosophize and make all sound fancy later. But that is exactly what you're enabling yourself to do by transitioning. So there is no death. That body dies, yes, the organic matter, but the joke on us is that we call it death, we act like it's the end, but yet there is no actual real death. It's just a transition/death experience. There is the saying, from joy I come, from joy I am, from joy I go. I'm messing up the quote. It's a saying, it's rough, and it's probably maybe even a biblical thing, but you have to understand that we are coming from joy and we're returning back to joy. And for the people that sit with people in their dying days, at their dying moments, and by the way, of those five senses, the last to go for someone dying is their hearing. So that's why when you are with someone, I love you, go to the light, go to love, it's okay to leave, we're okay, I'm going to be fine. These things actually really are fundamental and they matter, and the people can hear you. And a lot of people will say that the people that do actually sit there in the room with people is an extreme amount of joy and peace rushes over them when that soul actually does leave this horrible physical encasement. And I'm sure if you've listened to the near-death experiences, NDEs, you've heard people describe what it feels like to shake this dang bodysuit. The joy that soul is now experiencing getting out of that encasement, getting out of that, it's really just like having shackles around our ankles, I presume. They're now free, soul and heaven aligned, more in their natural state. The person that sits with them actually usually will get some of that joy and peace passed on to them. I'm hesitant to say the words happy because obviously the ones that are left behind, the people that are left behind, we're the ones that need the prayer. We're the ones that are going to properly mourn and go through states of grief beyond imagine, depending upon who the person is that's dying in your life. I think grief and missing someone and man, it is probably the most beautiful and hard part about the human condition is losing a loved one, whether it's a romantic partner, a child, a parent, etc. Even a boyfriend, girlfriend. You really can't put measure the type of relationship and what people mean to one another. But I want to stay on track. So entropy is chaos. Chaos is what's here on earth. Death is when you're more aligned and in your most natural state there in heaven and the astral world. But I do believe chaos projects itself. So entropy does exist both in heaven as well. And I think that's quite paradoxical, but it's not just limited here to space-time. I wanted to put that out there. I believe that entropy is an ongoing battle. God made this really beautiful, the devil and the push and pull of Maya and the good and the bad and the dark and the light. That actually continues on for quite a bit on our soul journey. I personally believe our soul journey is not done when we're in heaven. We're still working our way up. And so entropy still follows us around everywhere. Entropy to me is anything going away from love, going into chaos. You could call it the devil. You could call it Maya, the delusion of being separate from the creator. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to take a stab at it, but entropy, in fact, Brian Johnson trying to defy entropy by the very definition of thinking you can beat it is almost taking a step towards entropy on some type of philosophical level of what my brain's tracking at. But that's enough. That's just a touch into it. I definitely look forward to dividing up these little topics into smaller topics so we can dive deeper into them. But obviously death, dying, entropy, the understanding of reality, infinity, and all of it is just a dang sexy topic, and it does matter. So I'm happy that we are here to talk about it. I don't know if you've noticed, but YouTube doesn't even send you the people's shows that you subscribe to, only if it basically follows your watch behavior. Have you noticed? I have definitely noticed. It's kind of annoying because I don't see the people I subscribe to, and I've got to go physically find them. So please engage with the show so you'll see some stuff I have coming out. You kind of have an idea of what it's going to be about. I'm going to dip my toes into some politics. Unlike before, I've never have, but that's what I came here to do on this earth. That brought me to the most important topic, actually. Not my most, but one of my favorite things that I do want to say is death is our biggest motivator. And the way that it motivates you because it puts a ticking time clock on everything. But my most freeing thing that I keep telling myself in regards to getting out there and doing everything that I want to do is no one will remember me 200 years after I die. No one will remember anybody. Like, think about what you'd have to do in history for people to still remember you in 2200, like, so basically go be just be what you want to be, take the risk, do the idiotic thing. Humans are so weird already. Like, I mean, I this is one of my motivating factors on getting out here and talking to you about some random topic about death and dying and literally blabbing to you, is I remind myself that girls put themselves on OnlyFans. So I'm not there, right? Like, I'm not doing that. And at the end, and so much worse, like, I also tell myself people put themselves on videos where they're watching other people do things and they just watch. So I can't, I'm going to make an idiot of myself. So is everyone else. And there is truly no getting it wrong. And I mean that in the most highest philosophical sense ever. And I can't even share that, like, take that to the nth degree, but I truly believe that there is no getting this earth journey wrong whatsoever. More on that to come. Have a good one.
Quantum bombs.